Welcome back to TechniqueWOD. Today we're talking about building positional strength using snatch pull downs. Okay, if you've never seen a snatch pull down before, it looks like this. It basically looks the exact same as it would if I was going to snatch, pull the weight, and then I'm going to go back down in the same positions, in the exact same position that I came up. So I'm not just dropping it on the ground, I'm setting back and then going down in the same exact fashion that I went up. So if I do it in slow motion, I'll be here, I'm here, I come through, I pull, and then I go right back down in the same position, in the same exact positions in reverse order as when I went up. So I like that for a lot of reasons. When you're doing just a snatch pull, or even you could do this as a snatch deadlift where you don't do the pull at the end, which I'll demo here in a second. That's actually a variation that I like debatably more than doing the pull. Sometimes I even combine them. We'll get to that in a second as well. What I really like about it is that you're drilling position essentially the whole time. You're doing all of your positions correctly on the way up, and then you get the benefit. You get the benefit on the way down. You get the benefit on the way down of doing the eccentric. So you're drilling each position on the way down. We're getting that active muscle lengthening. That eccentric is where you get the stimulus to build muscle mass. If you do just concentric only lifts all the time, you don't get as much of a stimulus to put on muscle mass. Of course, we have other ways to put on muscle mass. We squat and deadlift and do lunges and whatever else. So there's many other ways to put on muscle mass, but I really like clean pull downs because you get the eccentric component of the lift in addition to simply the concentric, so you can get a little bit of that muscular damage effect that helps with spurring growth. Okay. One other piece that I like, you saw in that last one how I kind of bounced it forward. That wasn't like the most amazing rep that I've ever done, but if that piece on the second pull where you're hitting the power position, then you're kind of bouncing it, if that tends to kind of throw you off and you're not able to get your footing, or maybe you have to step after you do it, then doing a snatch pull down where you just go to that power position and then you go right back down and you just do repetitions like that, I think that's a good way to ease your way into doing full snatch pull downs, because you don't ever actually get to the point where you're going up on your toes and the bar might bounce away from you and then you have to step. You can get out of position if you're not used to doing this. Normally you would just drop the weight on the ground and you wouldn't have to step or catch it or anything like that. But if you're trying to do multiple reps in a row, just doing the deadlift portion where you're just getting to that power position and then you're going right back down, I think is probably the best place to start. If we back up just for a second and talk purely technique for snatches, all the snatch technique is the same. At the bottom, I want to have straight arms. I want my butt to be relatively low, maybe just slightly higher than my knee. My knees are pushed out. My knees are pushed out over my feet. And the bar, of course, is mid-shin, right here. And I'm keeping a nice flat back. I'm pushing my knees back, rocking towards my heels while staying covered over the bar. So I'm in a nice high first pull position. I'm going to do that double knee bend, so to speak, and end up right here in that power position. Okay. If I'm doing just the snatch pull with a deadlift fashion, I'd stop here, go back down where I straighten my knees a little bit, and then rebend them as I go back down. And I'm doing repetitions just like that. Okay, if you're doing the full pull, same thing, except I take it just a step further. I extend onto my toes, and then I go back down like that. So mechanically, the repetitions should look just like they would if you're doing a full snatch, of course. One thing I like to do, probably my favorite variation of this, is to be elevated a little bit where I'm doing more of a deficit pull. So the bar starts a little bit lower, but what I like about it is that as I go back down, I can get the bar all the way to the ground without the ground kind of getting in the way, where I can go just a little bit lower than normal. That way, if I'm doing multiple reps in a row, I'm at no risk for kind of like banging the bar on the ground, but I still get that full range of motion. So usually that looks like this. In fact, usually what I do, if I do a set of 3, my favorite way to do it is do 2 deadlifts and then a full pull. So it'll look like this. I'll be here. And if you want, you can drop it on the 3rd one. That's typically what I do if it's actually heavy. A little lightheaded. Happens to me a lot, actually. If it's a little bit, if it's light, then usually what I'll do is I'll be here. I'll do a set of 3. And then on the last one, I'll just do a regular snatch pull and just drop it on the ground. That's my favorite way to do it. Common errors are just like that when you're doing a full snatch. So probably the most common ones, gripping too narrow where the bar's hitting low. You want to be grabbing wide enough where the bar's hitting you right on your belt line. In that start position, if I'm from the side here, being able to get all the way in that bottom position with a nice flat back and a good back angle. My butt's not too high. I'm not round over like this. My knees aren't so narrow like this where the bar's out in front of me and now I can't clear my knees without having my butt pop up first. Okay? So you want to have your knees and your feet wide enough where you can keep that flat back and push your knees out of the way, and the bar can come into you a little bit, but it doesn't hit your knees. Okay? And then as I pass my knees, I'm going to push my knees under the bar, getting to a vertical torso with a slight bend in my knees. I'm super heel heavy at this point. That way I can push through my heels and then rock to my toes and fully extend, triple extension, shrug. If you're doing a full snatch, you'll catch it overhead. In our case, you're going to go right back down. Okay. Again, I was saying earlier that I like this setup, this deficit setup. If you're a person that's super tall, maybe you have poor ankle mobility, maybe you have poor hip mobility, there's many reasons why you might not be able to get into a lower position, especially for snatches. You have to have pretty good mobility to get into a perfect position. Let's see, I rock like this from the side. It's hard to get into a perfect position down here if you're not relatively mobile, especially at your ankles. So if you have poor ankle mobility, you might be like this, where your ankles aren't bending any further, but now my butt is a little bit higher, and now I have to be round, or I might end up caving my knees in, or I might have to go onto my toes. There's many things that could go wrong if you have poor ankle mobility. So if you don't have the requisite mobility to get into a good position while standing on plates, where you need that extra mobility to get to a good position because now you have more range of motion, the bar's traveling further, the bar's starting lower, then that might just not be a good variation for you to start with. So it's just as good to go off the ground for the most part. That's a slight tweak. I like it, but it's not a big deal if you just want to pull from the floor like normal. I tend to just treat these in the same fashion as far as programming goes, just like I think about snatch pulls and clean pulls. I tend to do kind of 3 to 5 sets, 1 to 3, 1 to 5 reps maybe. I don't tend to go in the hypertrophy rep ranges. I'm not doing 8s and 10s and 12s. That doesn't mean you can't do it. I tend not to. Most people I know tend not to, but you certainly can. If you want to do a set of 8 and do it heavy, and you want to do 4 sets of 8 or 5 sets of 10, you totally can do that, and that'd probably give you a good amount, just like doing a set of 10 on front squats. That'd give you a good amount of fatigue, good amount of muscular damage. You're going to build muscle, like in the exact positions that you need to be good at weightlifting. So that's a great option, but I tend to think about these as being something that I do heavier or that I do very explosively to become a better weightlifter. So I tend to stick to the 3 to 5 sets of 1 to 3, maybe even 1 to 5 reps. So programming wise, stick with that. We'll do another video on clean pull downs here in the future. Of course, a lot of the principles are the same. There'll be a few subtle differences though, so keep an eye out for that. You can follow me. I'm Douglas E. Larson on Instagram. I also have my own site, DougLarsonFitness.com, where I have a lot of nutrition, movement, mobility information on that site. Also, the Shrugged Collective, we post Barbell Shrugged every Wednesday and most Saturdays these days. TechniqueWOD is every Sunday. And then we also have another show pretty much every day of the week. We're posting almost every single day right now, so check that out. It's not just Barbell Shrugged anymore. We have the Bledsoe Show, we got Real Chalk, we got Feed Me, Fuel Me. The Friday slot kind of rotates. Right now, Christmas Abbott has her show on there. It's an awesome show, so check that out, and I'll see you another day.
Shrugged listeners, welcome to the Shrugged Collective Program Vault. Over the last 6 years, we've been leading the charge in online strength and conditioning programming and coaching. And for the first time in the history of the Shrugged Collective, we're combining our 11 best-selling long-term and short-term accessory programs into one membership site called the Program Vault. From Olympic weightlifting to strongman, leaning out, nutrition, you name it, our 11 best-selling programs are yours for $47 a month. Get to shruggedcollective.com/vault, and you will find immediate access to our 11 best-selling strength and conditioning programs.